about what's cooking. Here now is the head chef of the Pemberton Township Food Service Program and your host, Tim Paroli.
Hello, welcome once again to What's Cooking. And here's the show where we answer what's cooking. That's on your mind, and we're going to let you know because today we have a special treat for you. We're going to show you how to prepare a couple of dishes that can be used as an appetizer. And since we're coming to you from the Garden State, we're going to show you what to do with that plethora of tomatoes you have at home. Our show is going to be about making up appetizers, but the nice thing about appetizers is once you learn how to make them, they can also be used as an entree or a main course. The dishes we're going to show you today are clams casino. Now, we've shown you them before. We're going to do them a little differently today. Oysters Rockefeller, we're going to show you how to make them with a lot less fat and a lot less calories. And then we're going to show you in the second half of our program what to do with all those tomatoes, and that's a fresh tomato sauce. The reason that we want to show you some of these things and the way we're going to show them to you is we try to cut out some of the heavy preparation that is into a lot of meals. You may be at home saying, gee, I'd like to try a dish like this or like that, or I've heard of that, but it's just too difficult to make. Well, we're going to show you a professional way to cut through all of the time and all of that long preparation. We're going to show you some of the tricks of our trade, and we're going to get you through these big items really, really fast. And we're going to just take out all the difficult things for you. Now, we're going to start off with clams casino. Now, clams are kind of a thing that most people say, gee, I love them, or I don't like them, and you'll never get me to try it. We go from one end to the other with extremes of clams. I have found the biggest problem with people trying out a shellfish or a seafood is that the preparation really scares the daylights out of you. First thing is clams. Gee, they're so tough to open. Well, we're going to show you today, and I'm going to let you in on a big secret. The size of the clam really has not a whole lot to do with the meal that you're going to make. If you want to make casinos for a dinner, use the larger clams. If you want them for an appetizer, use the little ones like I have today. Now, clams of this size are called top necks. And all you have to know is that once you get a clam the size you like, when you go to buy them, be sure you get them that size. These are between a cherry stone and a little neck. And that's the size that they can range. So you get an idea from the size of my hand and the size of these clams. They're not a real big clam, and these are very nice for an appetizer. I know, they're still hard to open. The next thing you have to have is a clam knife. And if you don't have a clam knife, but you've got a dull paring knife at home, hang on to that dull paring knife. Buy yourself a new one, because we're going to show you what to do with a new one today. But take the clams and throw them in the freezer. That's right, fresh clams in the freezer. You're going to put them in the freezer for at least an hour. If you freeze them solid, don't worry. You're going to take them out, and when they open a little bit, that's when you're going to open them. If you only put them in for about an hour, they're going to open as easy as I'm showing you right here. Now, I'm going to open a couple of these clams so that you can see it. And if you get a clam that's really tough to open, don't hurt yourself. Throw that guy right into the freezer. All right? So now to open a clam, I want you to look at the back of the clam. The back of the clam has a little star on it, or a little diamond. You can call it whatever you want. One side has a hinge, and then it's got this little corner right there. And that funny little corner is what you want to have looking at you. So you put the hinge part into your hand like that. Then you're going to have that looking up at you the way I have it. And you're going to take your clam knife, and you're going to lay the clam knife right into the part where the shell meets. Then you're going to take the fingers of that hand, and they lay right across the clam knife. And you just pull with that. All right? Then once you go in, we'll show you one that's already open. In that clam are two little muscles. They're called adductor muscles. That's not important. All you have to know is that here and over here is all that's holding the clamshell shut. So you cut through the one side, pull the knife out a little if you want, cut through the other side, twist the knife, and the clam is going to open. Pop the clam open and scrape down the clam that's hanging on the top part of the shell. Take that shell, twist it off into the trash. Take that little piece of hinge that's going to come off because you don't want to go chomping down on that. And then we're going to just scoop that right out and leave that clam meat right in there. All right? And that's all you've got to do. So the trick that makes them so that you can open them so fast is get them cold. The colder you get them, the easier they open. If you get them frozen, anybody can open them. You can just leave them till they pop open as they thaw out a little bit, and then you don't even have to force the knife into the clam, and you'll be able to get them open. So you can have a bunch of clams all set, and they can be done just that fast. The other thing you want to remember is if you're going to try a clam that's uncooked, like a half shell, you definitely want to make sure that the clams are strictly fresh and that you've got them very cold and that you've kept them cold. Because if you're not going to cook them, the colder you keep them, the lower the bacteria is going to be in them. And that's what you want to have. So we want to make sure that we get them as cold as we can. There's one warming up. And that we get them open, ready to go. So that's, somebody doesn't believe me, they're going to call in right away. That's all you have to do with the clams. Now they're ready to be made into casinos. So I'm going to move this over here just to put them out of the way. Casinos, very popular as an appetizer, and people pay a lot of money for casinos. And all you have to know is that the casino mix is nothing more than peppers and onions. Now, what makes the casino mix different is that they use different colored peppers in it. So I have today, I've got some red peppers, and I've got green ones, and I've even got a yellow pepper here. And that's going to really put some color in this dish. And I recommend, if you've never tried clams before, be sure you try them this way. Try them casino style before you try them steamed or half shell. You're going to get an idea what the taste of the clam is like, and you also, when you prepare it, you're going to have a lot more confidence in trying that. And what we're going to do is just cut some pepper strips off of each one here. Just like that. Now, I'm making my long cuts first. Whenever you're going to have to dice anything, remember that. Make the longest cuts you have to make all of those first. Because now all we got to do is line up all these long pieces of pepper, and I'm going to cut them the same width as I cut the strips to begin with. And I want these nice and small because these aren't going to cook very long. They're going to go right on a clam, and we're going to cook them, and you see that the clams are very small. So unlike a baked clam or anything like that, where we're going to cook them a long time, casinos cook very quickly. So we take that, and I'm kind of lazy. We're making a little portion so that you can see it. I don't want to have a big mess to clean up, so I find that pie pans are great. When I'm all done, if I haven't baked with them, they can be put right into the dish machine, and they work out well for very small items. Now we're going to get an onion all set. And the onion is a little bit different. We're going to make this into small little diced pieces just like we did. But if you've ever taken an onion apart, and I'm sure you have, it's in rings, and I've cut that in half. So now I've got all these little half moons of an onion. All I'm going to do is cut them. I'm cutting this the same width as I cut the peppers originally. Get my hand out of the way. And then I'm going to cut that the same width as I did the first time. And that's all I need. So that's all set. Let's break them apart. Now if you take a look at our mix, you can see already that that is beginning to just have a ton of color to it, and that's what we're after. Remember, I'm going to get you to try this dish for the first time, and you're going to like it, so we have to make sure. Now, today I'm going to put in a little bit of garlic powder. I like the garlic powder better. I have granulated here. The powder will dissipate and dissolve really, really well. And you won't get an overabundance of garlic in one particular spot of this dish. We're putting in some black pepper and some salt. And then we're going to throw in some crumbs into this. I got a bag of some hot dog rolls that are a little too far gone. We're just going to use them, and we're going to cut them up fresh. And what we're going to do with that, get him out of the way, is I'm going to do the same principle I just taught you. Long cuts first. And then we're going to just keep the knife from hardly making a cut next to it. And I'm going to just rock that blade right on there. We've talked about knives on this program, and this type of knife, it's called a French knife, and it works very well for most of our cutting and dicing and slicing that we have to do. Now I'm going to take our mix, and we're going to put some crumbs in there, and I'm only going to put, by volume, about half the amount that I have in vegetables. So I'm going to get rid of these now. And then we're going to take that. Now I've seasoned that. The other thing that I want to add to this is a little bit of butter. Now, if you're after cutting down on your cholesterol and all that kind of stuff, then you're going to have to leave out these last two ingredients. First thing is the butter here, and I'm putting the butter in for the flavor. And that's all it's going to get. Now, a lot of casino mixes and recipes tell you that you got to take this now and cook it and simmer it down and cool it off. You don't have to do that with this casino mix. Just stir that around and it's all set. Then we take a couple slices of bacon, and they're going to go on top. And all we're going to do is, we know the size of the clam. We're just going to cut the bacon so that it covers the clams that we have opened. And I've got a couple slices here, and we just cut that. And then all we're going to do is take that little pie pan of clams, and we're going to just pinch some of this and put it right on them. And we're just going to fill them with that mix. And I'm piling this up because this is all fresh now. None of this has been pre-cooked, so they're going to shrink. So that goes just like that. And then, after I throw that down there, we're going to take and put a slice of bacon on each one. And then these go into an oven. Now, the nice thing about this particular dish, especially being made on a pie pan, is that you can now take this dish and just cover it with a saran and pop it into the refrigerator until you're ready to use it. Or you can cook them off and pop them into the freezer, and then they will microwave beautifully. So we're heading over to our oven, and the oven, you're going to bake them. Don't you hate that? You'll talk to somebody in a kitchen and they'll say, oh yeah, just bake them off in the oven. Well, when anybody tells you to bake something, they're telling you to dry cook it between 350 to 400 degrees. So now when you hear bake, you'll know. We tell you that because your oven is going to be different than an oven that I'm using or one that the person that's giving you the recipe has used. So they're going to vary in degree, but the cooking method is going to stay the same. Okay, the second one I told you about is another shellfish. And I'm not going to lie to you, opening oysters is quite a different story. They even sell machines to open oysters, and a lot of professional people use an oyster opening machine. They even use them for clams. It's a gizmo. You set the oyster on it, and it pops the shell, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Oysters are a lot different looking. They've got a very craggy shell. They're just a pain in the tail end to open. Now, what I'm going to tell you to do, let somebody else open them. Buy them already shucked. One of the things that makes us able to do food quickly and get to a shortcut is that I'm basically lazy. So I want to find a nice, easy way to set us up a food that is kind of difficult to prepare. So I just want to show you a couple oysters that are already out of their shell. And I want to leave you with one thought on the oysters before we begin to make them, and that is oysters are sold shucked and sized. So if they already give them to you already sized, that's wonderful. They'll come in a size. Prime is a very large oyster. These are a select. Now, a select oyster, two of them right there, they're a little larger than the clams that we had earlier and that are in the oven. So a select is a nice size oyster. And what we're going to do with the oysters is make a classical dish very, very easy, and that's an oysters Rockefeller. And all we're going to do is you can take a casserole dish if you want. If you're going to present it on a table, then I suggest that you use a casserole dish. If not, just get the oysters and put them in a nice pan that's been sprayed. And all you do is line the bottom of a pan with the oysters. And then you take some fresh spinach. Now, I know a lot of people won't use this fresh spinach because they tell me every time I use fresh spinach, it's sandy, or I don't know how to clean it, or gee, that stuff is tough to use. Now, if you're only going to use a small amount like I am today, you just take that spinach and you hold it by the stems of the spinach and take some cold water. Right here, I've got a nice gallon of cold water, and you plunge them into the cold water and just pump them up and down a couple times. And you'll see all the junk is going to fall off. The thing that's falling off here that you can see, that's clouding that water up a little bit, is sand. And that's the biggest thing against fresh spinach is the sand in it. So there, the sand can go to the bottom. I can see it from here. You won't be able to at home. So you'll trust me on that. Now we're going to take that spinach, and I'm hanging on to it. Now watch what I'm going to do with it. I've got it by the stem end. I'm going to roll this spinach up. Now I just kind of roll it up on top of itself so that I can cut it. And then we're just going to cut that spinach up. All right, there goes the stems. I'm going to go the other way a couple times. Now I'm going to put that spinach right on top of the oysters. Now maybe I'm putting a couple things together that you don't like. But once they're cooked, they're going to be a lot better. So we're going to put some onion over this and some Swiss cheese over this, and it's going to go into our oven. And we're going to bake that off. Now what I want you to know is that this dish is as simple as I'm telling you, and we're going to check on it and see how it's doing, and we'll show that to you right after we take a little break. Now if you've been watching what I'm doing and we're going a little too fast for you, maybe we're covering more material than you would like us to cover this fast, what I want you to remember is get out a pencil and paper, because we're going to tell you this twice today, that if you want to obtain a video of what we're doing, send a check for $19.95 to What's Cooking, and it's show number 92-1, and send that care of Channel 14, Pemberton Township High School, Arnie's Mount Road, Pemberton, New Jersey. Our zip code is 08068. Remember, make your check payable to Pemberton Township High School.
Drive home safe. Remember to strap yourselves in with your safety belts. You don't want to end up like Eddie. Belt up. Don't be a dummy.
Hello, welcome back. We're going to take a peek in our oven now as I'm getting ready for our last part of our show, which is going to be the fresh tomato sauce. Now I've got my knife all ready, because with a fresh tomato sauce, cutting through the tomatoes, you need an extremely sharp knife. I want to take a peek at our oven though, because while you were gone, what I did was I changed the position of the pans. I moved the casinos to the bottom. I put the rock up top. I want you to just take a peek at them right now, that these are just about ready. Okay, they're almost ready now, but we're going to let them cook a little bit so that they crisp up that bacon just a little bit more. And the oysters are going to be a few minutes yet. So we're going to let them continue to cook. The nice thing about these type of foods is that you can control the time on them. In other words, they can be ready early and they stay hot for a very long time. The oysters, because they're buried underneath some Swiss cheese, and the clams, because they're still in the shell, they're going to stay nice and hot. All right, what I'm going to show you today is fresh tomato sauce, because there's a lot of tomatoes around. right now. They're inexpensive. They may be just falling off the vine in the backyard. What we're going to teach you today is a little bit of sautéing food items. Now, sauté means nothing more than to cook something lightly and quickly in a small amount of fat. And all we're going to show you is to do just that. I'm going to take a clove of garlic. We're going to put that in a towel, and I'm going to lay the knife over it. And I'm going to crush that clove, and it should pop right out of the, well, let's do this so I keep the board nice and clean. Once you pop that shell on that garlic, it's going to fall right out with a little push. And now you're going to have completely shelled garlic. Now, if you haven't learned that trick before, remember that, because should you have a dish, or once you make this, I know it's going to be popular and you're going to have to make a lot of it. Now, this dish is going to have some oil in it. So that's our small amount of fat. I'm going to pour a little oil on the board, and I'm not losing my mind yet. But what I'm going to do is oil the knife, and I'm going to put the clove of garlic into the oil. The reason for that is so that the garlic won't stick to the knife. Now, without the oil, it would stick right to it right away, because garlic, especially fresh garlic, is very, very sticky. So there's our garlic. Now, I'm going to cut that real small because I hate a big chunk of garlic when I'm eating a food that I want just the taste of the garlic to be mixed with the taste of the sauce. Now, I'm also keeping an eye on my sauté pan. The oil is getting very thin, and I can tell that by the way it's starting to run in the pan. And what I'm going to do with that is roll the pan around. Now, a lot of people feel that when you're rolling the pan around, they see that in the kitchen, they think that you're just moving the oil around. What we're actually doing is distributing the heat. The oil is hot, so I want to roll that around, and the oil will form lines in the pan. And that's one way that you know that it's nice and hot. I also had this pan on very low before we started, and you can see the lines right in the pan. That's the heat. I'm going to roll that around till we get it nice and hot. Now, I'm going to clear off my board by putting the garlic into the oil. You can hear it's just starting to sizzle just a little bit. So that goes in there. Now I'm going to clean off the knife from the garlic and the board. And I'm going to shake this around. That's the whole idea of a sauté pan, is that you just cook it light and quick. Now if you take a look at that, you're going to see that the garlic is going to change color. Now the thing, I'm cutting a little onion while I'm telling you that. What we're going to do about that is let that just about brown. And that's all we're going to do with it, because the aroma and the flavor of the garlic is going to change from just plain sautéed garlic to almost browned garlic. There's a big change in the taste. And when you over brown it, then the garlic gets bitter. So we don't want to do that. Cut a couple reds. We don't need that many reds in here, the red peppers. Now I'm going to roll that around again. If you take a look at that, it's turned nice and white. All right, it's just starting to brown. Now that I've got the garlic where I want it, I'm going to send the fire up nice and high. And we're going to put our vegetables in there. Now what they do is stop the cooking process. That garlic will no longer brown. Now these are fresh tomatoes. We're going to just put them right in there. And this is a great dish to use up all those soft tomatoes. They're a little too soft to slice. When you slice them, they run all over the cutting board. This dish is made for those kind of tomatoes. There's one right there. And since you're only going to chunk them up, the ones with the little knots and stuff in them, you can cut all that out and use that tomato up. All right, so the vegetables, you can hear them, they're cooking. And the onion now has turned a translucent, or we can almost see through the onion. So we shake that around. I'm going to pull the pan over to the cutting board and just slide the tomatoes and the juice. And I'm going to toss that. And now we're going to let that cook just a little bit. I'm going to salt that. We're going to pepper it. I pepper that kind of heavy because the tomato being fresh is going to be nice and strong. Oregano, and I'm going to put in twice as much basil as I did the oregano. So for 2 tomatoes, 2 pinches of the basil. Now we're going to let those spices get nice and hot. And now we're going to hit this with a little bit of wine. All right, now we're going to shake that just a little bit, and I'm just going to... Now what's going to happen to this, as this gets hot, these fresh tomatoes are going to break down, and the juice is going to run out of the tomatoes, and it's going to just fill that pan. And we're still going to have some chunks of the tomato because we left the skins on them. We didn't peel these, we didn't partially cook them or anything. So this is strictly a fresh dish. Got to check this, make sure I've got it. Oh, you should be here. All right, now what I want to do is take some pre-cooked pasta, and that's going to just go into our, I'm going to put that in the bowl, the amount that I'm going to want with this, just like that. And if you take a look at this dish already, you can see that it's breaking up nicely, and that's going to make its own little sauce in there. And by letting it reduce or simmer this minute here that's taking, you can see all the steam that's coming out of it, it's going to get where it's going to thicken up just a little bit where it'll stick real nice. Now I want to pull a plate up and put our appetizers out so that you can see how nice they look. Now, as I said before, these appetizers are very nice to use as an appetizer, but the clams are nice because you can either try one or several of them. And I also told you that the Rockefeller works out very nice to be either the appetizer or it can also be used as an entree. And here, when you prepare them without the shell and without all that on there, these will casserole real nice. And I'm just going to, the only thing I have to cut through here is that spinach because the oysters themselves are very, very tender. We pour the extra juice off. And you've got a dish of 2 different appetizers right there that's really, really nice to have. And as you see, our sauce has bubbled up. And that goes right over our pasta. So we've shown you the appetizers and what to do with all those tomatoes. So if you liked what you saw today, make sure you've got that pencil handy. Jot down the information so that you can get a copy of our program.